What are the top things that I've learned from content creation in the 6 months that I've been doing this YouTube channel? What are the general life productivity things that I've learned over this journey and trying to better myself over the last few months? And my choose violence essay. All things I will be talking about in today's podcast. Welcome back, and thank you for joining me on my second podcast of this format. I really appreciate it. So last week, I did some more news segment stuff, but this week I'm probably going to skip that just because it's not evergreen. The content doesn't really last very long. It ages like, I don't know, something that doesn't age very well. Ages like avocados, let's put it that way. Yeah, one day they're good, and then the next day it's no longer relevant. So to keep this a little bit more evergreen, I'll keep to some of this stuff that I think should be valuable, legitimately good things that I've learned and practical takeaways that you can use to enhance whatever your thing is that you're working on. So I've been doing this YouTube thing for about 6 months now. I started it, and I started a little bit slowly. Why I started this journey is because I'm currently in a situation where I'm unable to do a lot of other things. And this is something that I'm able to do. I'm able to also structure this around family time, putting the family first, putting the kids first, being able to be a full-time dad, stay-at-home dad. Well, I mean, the kids are in daycare a lot of the time, which then gives me a bit of time to do this, but also chase some of the things I need to chase, do the admin I need to do. And yeah, this is something that I can fill my time with that I think has a chance of compounding and hopefully becoming something. If not, I like the idea of being able to be a little bit creative and put some of my ideas out there that I've spent a lot of time thinking about. I've also been it's a realization I had recently that I've been in this podcaster sphere. I've been obsessed with self-help, self-development, getting better for a long time. And hopefully one day soon I'll be able to talk a little bit more about that and the arc I went on and the journey of self-development and what I learned through a pretty stressful, hard time and what I've come out of that with. So I'll put some practical takeaways in this last 6 months, which has not been easy, transitioning from full-time work into stay-at-home dad and content creation, which has been a very interesting challenge. So one thing I've learned is you've got to go hard or go home. If you dabble a little bit into this whole realm of making videos, content creation, it doesn't really work out. And I think I'm reminded of Matthew McConaughey's famous story that he says about his dad when he tells him he wants to be an actor. And he was expecting his dad to be like, oh, no son of mine will be an actor, all of that. And he turned around and said, well, don't half-ass it. And it reminds me of this because I think that if you just do a little bit here or there, you're not going to get the results and you'll end up quitting. A little bit ironically, and a lot of the advice they give you is don't go too hard too fast. You'll get creative burnout. But if you don't go hard or fast, you don't grow. So you burn out anyway because you do it for extended amounts of time and you don't get traction. And you go, well, I'm not getting any results. I'll quit. So I think there's a fine line to be had between not doing too much that you absolutely burn yourself out and you go so hell for leather and you go, well, I worked so hard and got nothing, so I quit. And then doing so little that it's just enough to add load to your plate, add an open loop. And we all know we hate loops, right? The Zeigarnik effect, we remember more and our brain works overtime So for those that don't know, the Zeigarnik effect it's an open loop essentially. They found that they did studies on waiters and waitresses, and when they were in the middle of a sale and until the sale was finalized, they could remember everything. It was how they were able to remember the whole menu of what they'd ordered or the whole list of what everyone at the table had ordered up until the bill was finalized. And then once the bill was finalized, data dumped everything. And it's just that we have that open loop. Our working memory expands to what that loop is. So we absolutely need to close loops. And when we have more and more loops open, that's where I think complexity and stress and burnout also compound. So you've got to do enough. You've got to do enough that you really get traction, or you're adding loops to everything. So if you do one and you just say the classic, you do one video per week. Yeah, that could be good because it kind of tells you whether or not it's worth doing or you enjoy it. Because if you hate it, hey, maybe don't give it a crack. But I think that works with everything, right? You go to the gym once a week or once a fortnight, you're not going to get any gains. You're not going to get anywhere with that. So you should go more than that. Now, you don't want to go too hard, and actually you really can overtrain and burn yourself out in the gym. But that limit's probably a lot higher than what most people think. You could probably train every day. I mean, you can train every day, minus a rest day here or there. But my point is that you've got a high level of volume that you need to achieve to actually get results. And if you're trying to, take it easy and rest and do all that stuff too much, you just won't get anywhere. You won't get the gains, you won't get the results. And I think content creation is in that bucket because it takes volume. And it's partially Hormozy that I got this from, but he says just find out what you want to do and do it at such a volume that it would be unreasonable that you wouldn't succeed. And I think that's a part of this case. So I kind of had that realization. I started off trying to get one at a time, and I was doing it during the day when the kids were in daycare. But hey, if the kids were sick, boom, there goes my time. If anything like that happened, let's look back into that. But if anything like that happened, I'd be done. So, and I'd get nothing done. So my one a week over Christmas became 0 per week for a month or two. So I haven't quite hit that 1 per week average. I've done a couple in a week here or there, but it's only in the last week or so that I've really gone hard on the volume. Now, how have I been able to do that? I'll get to that later. But so that's where I think there's a dichotomy. You don't want to go too hard and burn yourself out, but you also don't want to underdo it and just never achieve the results and also burn yourself out. Either way, the road leads to burnout, but one of them stands a higher chance of succeeding. So I'd rather burn out and be successful than burn out and be unsuccessful. So the other one I want to talk about is following creative energy versus the logical brain. Now, this is particularly big in the content creator space. And I don't know if anyone who is in this space watching this, you've probably seen you have to be analytical. You have to go through and do your market competitor research and find keywords that work. And I think that's probably true. That's probably very true. And there's a lot of copycatting. You've got to copycat to a degree. You pick a successful creator, pick a format that works because there's demand for that idea, that video title, thumbnail, whatever. But the problem is that I think you've got to have some level of creativity with this. And I know they say to add your own creativity, add your own style, add your own voice to it. But there's an element of, I think you've got to listen to the muse. It's literally telling you what you should be doing. So I kind of started thinking about this from an account, Higher Up Wellness, shout out. And he was saying that to him, that's coming from God and whatever, but it literally, the creative muse guiding you is where, so all the big works, they just say that the idea just kind of came up. J.K. Rowling has talked about the fact that Harry Potter just kind of came into her mind. It was a fully formed idea. She was just like, I've got to write that down. And obviously massively successful. Now you can get, I don't know, a bit metaphysical and wooey here and say that comes from some crazy collective consciousness or downloads from the universe or whatever, or it's just your subconscious coming up with ideas and it comes up. Who knows? But either way, I think there's an element of you've got to listen to that. And that's where the essays that I've been writing have kind of come from. They've just been ideas. And I thought, well, why don't I write them down? I think about these concepts a lot. I've got a lot of these concepts in my head and they're informed by, one, my experiences, and two, what I read and research, which is significant because I'm always listening to podcasts, I'm always reading books, and I start to piece together these concepts in the world. And then I just had this idea, so I wrote it down. So I think there's another dichotomy there. And I think there's a lot of dichotomies in the world, and this is one of them, is do you, one, follow what makes sense to do? And I think there's a little bit of the case that you kind of got to follow what you want, that spark of interest. What is pulling you towards it? Follow the pull, I think. because it also means that you're pulling or you're being pulled towards something rather than you pushing towards something that you think you should want or you think you should do. And I think that applies to everything. It's not just in content creation. I think that's in everything. Are you doing the job that you think you should be doing? Are you doing the job that someone has told you should be doing? Are you doing the job because of some level of trauma in your past requires security or something? That's another topic that came up in discussion with a friend the other day. But what is it that you're doing that is that your logical brain telling you, oh, this is what I should do because it makes sense, because it's the smart option, it's the smart play, versus what do I feel compelled to do? What do I feel is calling me? And I think that's that taps into some motivation. That taps into the motivation. Chris Williamson talks about that being obsession and using that obsession as fuel. And I think it's valid. I think it is valid. So absolutely be smart. Don't just follow what your inspiration says at the cost of everything else and just say, well, you don't get it, man. I'm the tortured artist that just no one gets my music. Well, maybe your music just sucks. So there's an element of that. Listen to the market, take the feedback, maybe get better. But at the end of the day, you've just got to weigh up whether you're doing what you're doing for the right reasons, or whether it just you think that's the smart thing to do, or whether or not you're being pulled towards something and that's what you actually should be doing. So productivity, I have found a lot more time to be able to get this volume that I was talking about before. And how I've done that has been by doing a couple of things. One of them, the big one, I think, is going to bed an hour earlier. I talked about this in a short recently, but going to bed an hour and a half earlier has enabled me to get up early and get a few hours of work done, just solid work. It's been an absolute game changer, because if I do that every single day, then I wake up at 4:30 every day. The kids wake up between 6:30. I get between an hour and a half and 2 hours done before anybody even gets out of bed, which is amazing. That's a huge amount of work. And particularly if I just get into the work. I used to do this thing where I'd have these like pre-work meditation rituals. I wouldn't light a candle and chant or anything like that, but I would sit down there and I'd think about it and I'd come up with my plan and I'd visualize maybe, or I'd try and get into the mindset to do good work, or I'd do an ice bath beforehand, or I'd go for a run. This was the one I used to do a lot, is I'd be like, all right, well, before I can get into the work, I'll go for a run, I'll do an ice bath, and I'll do a quick meditation to get into the zone. That has just taken up an hour and a half of your work time. I've just delayed doing the work by about an hour and a half. And it takes 5 to 10 minutes for you to kind of overcome that mental friction to start the deep work and get into flow state anyway. So the longer you delay that, the longer it's going to take you to actually do the work. So just do the work. And that's what I've been finding. I don't get up and do all this stuff that I used to do. I mean, there is benefit, I think, in having a good morning routine, where they talk about do some visualization, maybe do some meditation, which is really good for you. Maybe do some gratitude, journaling, stuff like that. I think that's great for your mental space. And if you're waking up and just going about your day, that is a great starting place. Or doing an ice bath, doing something hard, doing some movement. Great. Love that. But I've been liking the Alex Hormozy thing where you just get up and go to work. And then you get that done for as long as you can. And it's an uninterrupted, productive block when you're fresh. Because it's transferring that last hour and a half of the day where I'm tired, I'm absolutely cooked, been at it all day, and I can't think. And if I do that work in the last half hour and a half of the day, then it affects my sleep because I'm all stressed because I've been working, because I've been thinking. I've added this mega cognitive load to the very end of my day, which is terrible for sleep. So just swapping that for the morning, absolute game changer. Highly recommend it. If you're not currently getting up at 4:30, do that. I might start dialing back. I tried to go to 4 o'clock. The downsides to this, which I actually think will help people, is that I almost got that pre-trip anxiety before doing it for the first couple of days. So it was like my body and my brain knew, hey, you got some shit on, get up and go. And I woke up 45 minutes before my alarm was set for that 4:30 anyway. which meant that I was up at 3:30 and then I was really tired and I wasn't getting enough sleep. So that's something to be aware of. You don't want to trade sleep for work. You just want to trade non-productive work time for productive work time and find more productive hours. So that was really good. General life things I've learnt over this last couple of months. So the other thing that I've been doing is I've been really focusing on fitness, and I've lost 4 kilos and gained a kilo of muscle and dropped to about 10% body fat. So probably the best shape of my life, and I'm in my mid-30s. And I've done that through diet and gymming 3-4 times a week. So I've also used ChatGPT as my PT during this time, and that's been an absolute game changer. Amazing. If you can't afford a PT, but you have ChatGPT, highly recommend. I am going to do a full video on this breakdown, so watch out for that. But basically, I just add all my calories, macros, and what actual foods I've been eating into ChatGPT. I did that at the start of the year, and I sent it photos of like where I was at, shirtless, just kind of non-flattering, normal shirtless pics as a before pic almost. It gave me a body fat estimated percentage. It gave me a breakdown of where I had lagging muscles. So, hey, if you want to increase your aesthetics, work on this, this, and this, which for me was my lats, extend my lats, grow my lats wider, and then like my median deltoid, so get my middle delts popping. And so I thought that was fair points, and it gave me a program to structure to work on those. So I've been doing that for the last few months. And it also just straight away said, hey, you are not eating enough carbohydrates. That's why you're flat. That's why when you lose weight, you don't look jacked and shredded. You look skinny and stringy. And it's because your muscles deflate because they haven't got any glycogen. And ChatGPT just diagnosed that in seconds, but it's because I gave it all my data. I gave it everything I was eating in that day, and it said, hey, you're missing out massively. Your carbs are too low. And I guess I just got stuck into that keto, IF, all of these things that basically demonize carbs massively. And man, my energy levels sucked and my sleep sucked. But me increasing my carbs massively, massively helped my sleep as well. So my sleep improved, my energy levels improved, my workouts improved, my pumps improved, and I got more jacked and shredded. It was not overnight, because I've been consistent basically since January the 1st. After Christmas, I started hitting it pretty hard, and I've been consistent, and I've been tracking my calories using MyFitnessPal. Super easy. You can now just take a photo of what you're eating. So if you're at the pub or something, just take a photo of it, upload it later, and it gives you a pretty good breakdown. At least you know somewhere. Maybe is it super accurate? Don't know, but at least you have some idea rather than absolutely no idea, which is where I kind of was. So I was super consistent. I stayed at maintenance for the first 2 weeks, got my muscle glycogen up, all of that sort of thing, which was really good. Then I started a shred and dropped 200 calories, and then got down to, I dropped 4 kilograms and got to, 9.5, 10% body fat. And then I've been slowly trying to do a lean bulk after that. It's been amazing. So really, really good. So that brings me on to some of the things that I think are really, really important. And I was guilty of this, is don't fix the 1%ers until you fix the big levers. So where I was at, if my capacity's up here and my potential and capacity and everything's up here, but I'm not sleeping right, I'm down here. I'm drinking alcohol regularly, I'm down here. I'm not eating enough carbohydrates, I'm down here. So I was here, and yet I'm having my clean greens, I'm having multivitamins, I'm trying to get these little 1%ers. I'm having all of this, maybe have an ice bath or trying to do some, and it's like, these are really good little 1%ers. But until you stop drinking alcohol, boom, that's instant win, massive. Sleeping better, boom. Carbohydrates, boom, massive. You raise your ceiling so much quicker. And I think that is something that a lot of people kind of ignore. There's no point in trying to do a sauna once a week. There's not no point. Obviously, there's health benefits to that. But if you're worried about your health and you're drinking 3 or 4 nights a week and you're trying to go to the gym and you're doing a sauna and I'm staying healthy, but you're not tracking your you're not tracking your calories, so you don't know where your macros are at. You might not be having enough of whatever macro you need, not enough protein, carbs, or fat, or too much of one or the other. And you're not sleeping, or you're sleeping terribly because you are drinking in the evening. Even three or so drinks tanks your sleep. So your sleep quality sucks. You're not getting enough your diet sorted, yet you're trying to do these one percenters, like have a sauna and an ice bath or whatever. And I think you're much better off looking at the whole picture and going, what are the big levers? I think it's kind of like trying to save money by shopping the bargains in the supermarket, or, oh, I'm not going to have coffees out. I'm just going to make coffee at home to save $5 a day when you're spending $700 a week on a car loan. It's good. It's good to do that and save a bit of money and maybe not buy the coffees. But also, you could get rid of that very expensive car loan. That's going to make such a bigger difference, a much bigger difference than just not having a few coffees. So point is, big levers beat little levers. And once you've got everything that's stacked up really well on the bigger lever side, then you can start to look at the 1%ers, and they will compound and they will do a really good job for you. And this last one I'll leave you with is the concept of simple, not easy. I think there's so many things in life that are quite simple. The keys to success: simple, not easy. I think we can overcomplicate a lot of things, and I think that includes wealth creation. I think it includes working out. I think it includes content creation. Literally, I'll give you those three examples off the top of my head. So wealth creation, you can have a complex structure. You can day trade. You can arbitrage. You can hedge. You can do all these things. But most people with managed funds don't beat the index anyway. Most people over the long term. Do it short term, doesn't often have a sustained beat of the market. So what does? Just dollar cost average into ETFs or buy and hold real estate. Just sit there, put money into that every month, week, year. Real estate, buy it, keep paying it off. You'll build wealth. It's simple. Is that easy? No, buying a house is hard. Going and saving enough money to be owning it up to dollar cost average and everything, that's hard because you've got so many other options to do with your money. So putting that money away, staying through the volatility is hard. It's not easy, but it is simple. And it gets you arguably the best results. Arguably. Same as working out. You can get very, very complicated. You can go full scientist, crazy scientist, get DEXA scans, go hard, do complex workouts and do all kinds of different things and track your sleep metrics and wear a Whoop and do all these things. That's a lot of noise, but what is the real thing is just consistency every day. Go do something, whether even if it's go to the gym, do weights, just keep it simple and basic. You don't need to do crazy, CrossFit. Yeah, it can be great. It is good. Sure, as long as you're consistent, but you don't need to overcomplicate it into something that it's not. Any of these fad trends, like whatever it is, it just needs to be consistent. It doesn't need to be overly complicated, is my point on that. So simple, not easy, but going to the gym every day, getting over 10,000 steps every day, it's not easy. It's a bit effortful, but it is simple, but it's the key to success. And content creation, I think it's kind of hit me. One, you can invert what success is into what is definitely going to make me fail. Inconsistent posting, not posting enough, overthinking everything and not actually doing enough posts. So once again, just being consistent and trying to get better every time it's simple, but it's not easy because it's so effortful to sit here, film this, edit it, post it. Then as soon as I've done that, it's like, it's time to think about the next one. Simple, not easy. So there's a lot of things like that. All right, I've rambled too much already, so I'm going to finish up with the Choose Violence essay. I have done that as a separate video, so look out for that and check that out. But for those of you, you'll get it here, read live. One take. And you might even get a little bit of extra commentary for sticking through the podcast as a bonus. Choose violence. There is one factor that determines whether something arduous, stressful, or hard can be a source of growth or a source of pain, suffering, and trauma. That factor is choice. Hard things willingly undertaken form the backbone of our character. Even things unwillingly undertaken, but you've chosen to accept, can be the thing that gives you a strong character. There is a quote from Helen Keller that says, "Character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened." But I would argue that just being subject to hard things doesn't mean that you will be strong of character. In fact, I would go further, that you can't have a strong character in an easy life, but you can have a hard life and a weak character. It boils down to whether you choose to accept it. Look at military service. You have voluntary enlistment or conscription. Joining the military voluntarily conjures images of self-improvement, discipline, achievement, and pride in service. Being conscripted to fight in a war is a traumatic and terrifying proposition. Choice. Look at Sir Adrian Carton de Wyatt. He served in the Boer War, the First World War, and the Second World War. He was shot in the face, head, stomach, groin, ankle, leg, hip, and ear. He was also blinded in his left eye. Survived 2 plane crashes, tunneled out of a prisoner of war camp, and ripped off his own severely injured fingers when a doctor declined to amputate them. Describing his experiences in the First World War, he wrote, "Frankly, I had enjoyed the war." There is a man who chose violence. He could have chosen not to serve in his second war, the First World War, on medical grounds alone, yet he chose to go and fight in both the First and Second World Wars. Contrast this to Kurt Vonnegut, who was drafted into World War II, captured at the Battle of the Bulge, and taken to Dresden as a POW. He survived the bombing of Dresden in an underground meat locker and spent weeks digging out bodies out of rubble. He famously couldn't talk on the subject, and it took him 20 years to write about it through a fiction lens in Slaughterhouse-Five, which is rife with anti-war sentiment. Compare that to Sir Adrian Carton de Wyatt's memoirs, which he titled Happy Odyssey. Choice. It turns out that this isn't just philosophy, it's biology. This is replicated in mice studies, minus the firebombing. They separated 2 groups of mice. One was free to run on a wheel whenever they chose to, the other was forced to run on the scientist's schedule, which happened to be the same duration as the other group. The effects on the 2 groups were starkly different. In the autonomous group, they had reduced levels of anxiety and enjoyed the benefits of regular exercise. In the forced group, they had elevated levels of stress, anxiety, and injuries. The voluntary mice thrived. The forced mice were measurably traumatized. Same duration, same wheel. Choice. We cannot control every hard thing in our lives, however. We don't sign up for the death of a family. We don't sign up for the death of a loved one, like an ultramarathon, but we have elements of choice within our circumstances. We can choose who to be. We can choose to have a strong character. We can choose violence. Choosing your hard gives you an element of control. Choosing to exercise regularly is hard, but it drastically reduces the chances of an uncontrollable illness. Both things are hard, but one is better. Even if you still get sick, hey, you did your best. I know that given the choice, I would choose hard so that hard doesn't choose me. That was my Choose Violence essay. Came to me because I was thinking about the difference between, obviously, choice. How is some things become a cause for trauma, and how do some things become a cause for growth? Like, yeah, that sucked, but I got through it and now I'm better for it. And how do some things be, I'm a victim of this horrible thing that happened and it was very traumatic. So some things obviously are very well taken out of your control, which I think then increases the traumatic nature of them. So that was this. It's an attempt to somewhat gain control over the uncontrollable circumstances and explain why some people seem to deal with things better. It's just making sense of the world, and I think, yeah, anyway, I'm pretty happy with it. So thank you for watching, and this has been episode 2, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks.